Tomorrow's technology today, securely wired to the cloud. Welcome to our Microsoft 365 training series. As a gold certified Microsoft partner, we will walk you through the latest updates, tips, and tricks for Microsoft products.
Today we are going to talk about MFA. And if you don't know what MFA is, I'm sure Katie will tell you all about it. Katie is our project and training specialist here at T-Tech-T, and she specializes in those Microsoft 365 products. So she's going to tell us all about Microsoft MFA and how it works. We're really trying to focus on that user experience and make sure that you understand how to use these tools that you have available to you. Without further ado, we'll go ahead and get started with Katie.
Thank you so much, Amy. Welcome, everybody, and hopefully you had a chance to grab some lunch and you can just follow along as we talk through a few things. I don't have a whole lot to show today, but we do just want to bring up a couple points from the user perspective of how multi-factor authentication works. All right. So October is Cybersecurity Awareness Month. If you follow us on social media, Amy has been sharing out one tip per day for the whole month on how to keep yourself protected. So these 31 tips aren't necessarily just for businesses. They can be applied to your personal life as well. So feel free to head out to your social media and look us up to check them out. It's a nice, easy to read format, and they are yellow. So if you're just scrolling through your social media, they're easy to find. So, and feel free to share these tips with your friends and family too. So this one was on MFA and it was shared earlier this month, and it's just all part of it, just all part of how you can improve your cybersecurity platform. So what is multi-factor authentication? So multi-factor authentication is a process where a user is prompted during the sign-in process for an additional form of identification. This is such as entering a code on their cell phone or to provide a fingerprint scan. So if you only use a password to authenticate a user, it leaves an insecure vector for attack. If the password is weak or has been exposed elsewhere, is it really the user signing in with the username and password, or is it an attacker? When you require a second form of authentication, security is increased as the additional factor isn't something that's easy for an attacker to obtain or duplicate. Also remember, when you are setting up passwords, use something that is high secure. At least 14 characters, alphanumeric, upper and lower case, and at least one symbol. Do not make your passwords the same for every account that you have. So this is where a password management tool comes in handy so that you don't have to remember all these different passwords. So last one, do not save them in a browser. We have a 10-minute video of one of our technicians hacking into 3 different web browsers. And yes, he had all the passwords in under 10 minutes from those 3 browsers. I promise, security measures like MFA and strong passwords are not to ruin your life. It's to help you stay secure. So back to MFA. This is something that if you're a client for us, we enforce it for you. We want you to stay secure. If you're not a client of ours, know that you need to be a global admin to manage MFA. This is also for organizations using Azure AD. We're going to talk about MFA from an end user perspective. So let's talk about why you need MFA. It's more secure than passwords. We just talked about having a strong password, right? So now, why would you need another gate to keep the bad guys out? Here's the thing. In most identity attacks, it doesn't matter how long or complex your passwords are. Hackers can still get into your account. They could use a key logging software on your favorite website. That key logging software is recording the strokes you do on the keyboard. There is such a thing as bad password hygiene, in which case poor password policies. How often are you changing your password? Where do you save them? Those are all things to think about. Some types of multi-factor authentication are stronger than others. Make sure your credentials for high-risk accounts are resistant to phishing and channel jacking. If you're using email for MFA, you're kind of putting it into a loop. We suggest using something different, like kind of away from your Microsoft account, such as a text message to your phone or using a code on the Microsoft Authenticator app. Remember, Any MFA is better than no MFA. And the third reason why is that passwords are making you vulnerable. A lot of times this is because users are notorious for reusing passwords, and this puts an organization at risk using single-factor authentication. Amy, does anybody have any questions so far?
Nothing yet, but you may want to go back when you talked about oh, I forget the term you used for it. The different things you want to protect with the password. Something about it. Was it a chain or something? I can't remember the word you used. Talking about point, I believe it was point 2, where you didn't want them to get in. You wanted it to be, or may have been point 1. I'll go back. I'll figure it out.
Okay, sounds good.
There was some wording there that I was like, ooh, they might want to know more about that. So if anyone else was confused, let me know, because there was wording there I wanted to check out.
Okay. All right, so Azure AD multi-factor authentication requirements. So Azure AD multi-factor authentication can also further secure password reset. When users register themselves for Azure AD multi-factor authentication, they can also register for self-service password reset in one step. Administrators can choose forms of secondary authentication and configure challenges for MFA based on configuration decisions. Apps and services don't need changes to use Azure AD multi-factor authentication. The verification prompts are part of the Azure AD sign-in event, which automatically requests and processes the MFA challenge when required. So there are a few different ways that you can verify that it is really you logging in. So when a user signs into an application or service and receives an MFA prompt, they can choose from one of their registered forms of additional verification. Users can access My Profile to edit or add verification methods. For SMS or a phone call, the trick here is that the phone number tied to the Microsoft account needs to belong to the person accessing the account, which means if you have a shared Microsoft account with MFA enabled, when you go to trust the device, the MFA code is going to go to the person responsible for that account. So just something to know when you're setting up a shared account. Microsoft Authenticator. So this is one of my favorites, and this is something that we definitely recommend that you go to your app store and install on your mobile device. So this approves sign-ins from a mobile app using push notifications, biometrics, or one-time passwords. Augment or replace passwords with two-step verification and boost the security of your accounts from your mobile device. Windows Hello for Business. I love this one. So this replaces your passwords with strong two-factor authentication on Windows 10 devices. Use a credential tied to your device along with a PIN, a fingerprint, or facial recognition to protect your accounts. So this is where it comes in handy that you can use your face to unlock your computer and also authorize as you get signed in. FIDO2 security keys. Sign in without a username or password using an external USB, near-field communication, or other external security key that supports fast identity online standards in one place of a password. Then we also have hardware tokens automatically generate a one-time password based on open authentication standards from a physical device. Software tokens use the Microsoft Authenticator app or other apps to generate an oath verification code as a second form of authentication. And again, SMS and voice, you can receive a code on your mobile phone via SMS or voice call to augment your password security. So those are all the different options. And this isn't even necessarily just tied to Microsoft. Anytime that there is any kind of app or service that you're using that requires MFA, a lot of times these are going to be options for you.
What does that oath stand for? What is that about? Or what are those?
Let's see.
Isn't that another like outside authentication or something like that? Isn't that what it means? I'm not sure.
It is, yeah. Yeah, it's the open authentication. And that's just a different standard that they have, that they use.
Okay, so just making sure that it's another form of verification, basically.
Yep.
Okay.
So this is an example of what you see when you log in with your Microsoft account. So typically you do this once to trust the device, and it isn't something that you're going to have to constantly do throughout your day. So hopefully you already have MFA set up and this looks familiar from your setup. But I just wanted to show this is what it looks like. And when you have MFA enabled a few ways, you will have some options on how to authenticate to get to your account. Are there exceptions to the rules? Always, of course, right? That goes with anything. So if your organization has more granular sign-in security needs, conditional access policies can offer you more control. Conditional access lets you create and define policies that react to sign-in events and request additional actions before a user is granted access to an application or service. If you allow exceptions, hopefully it's just on a case-by-case basis. If you absolutely have to do it, and you turn off those exceptions 99% of the time. All right, what questions do we have about MFA?
So anything that is another form of authentication would be considered MFA, meaning like if you use your fingerprint, your, like you said, the facial recognition, another code, an extra email, things like that, those are all considered multi-factor authentication, correct?
Yes, they are. Yep,
Not just one or the other.
correct.
Okay, and that was one. And then another one is with MFA, is this something that you do just on your business accounts, on your personal accounts, both? Like, how would you do that for both?
I would definitely recommend doing it for both. Like I said, you do have to be a global administrator to turn it on. And I think actually by default, I think Microsoft is now turning this on when you get your account. So if not, you can go into the admin portal and you can turn it on from there.
Yep, so it's super, super important.
It is,
That's
absolutely. Yep.
okay. Well, I'm going to pop on back on here too and say, I will say, personally, I was not one who wanted to do a lot of MFA because I was like, oh, one more step. It's a lot. And especially when I'm switching back and forth between programs a lot. I will work on, this program and do something, and then I'll work over here for a little bit and do something. And I was like, ugh, one more step. Is it really that important? Is it really that important? Yes, it is really that important. And really now it has just become a part of my process. It makes it pretty easy. And some of the things I work in need more than one backup to get into. It takes me a couple different ways to get into it. I noticed with my new cell phone, the way it has different things set up on my work side versus my personal side, I have to get into a little more there. So it really is worth the effort. And once you get used to it, it is really simple. Like I said, I was one who they kind of took kicking and screaming a little bit, like, I don't want to do it. But it really is that important. And it does just become part of your routine. And it does add that layer of security. So one way that I knew, just with my own cell phone, I mean, you add that code to your phone or whatever, the pattern, code, finger, face, whatever, I added that primarily to keep my son off of it. However, it's going to keep someone else. If I leave it sitting somewhere, yeah, they can see my home screen, so they can see, or my lock screen, so they get to see this, but they're not really getting any information. It's a baseball. So there's nothing there. There's nothing personal there. So you can kind of do that and see without giving up any information, I guess.
And Amy, that's a great point. So if you have, like, if you're one of those people that has your phone, like let's say in your bedroom and you're sleeping at night and you get that notification and it wakes you up and you're like, huh, that's kind of weird. Like, but you just blow right past it and you approve it. That means someone's trying to hack into your account. Or if it's a shared account, double check with the person and make sure that's actually them trying to log in, like if it's during the day, you know what I mean, like during business hours or something
Well,
like
and that
that.
happened to us yesterday. We were on a group call yesterday, and one of our coworkers needed to get into a shared account that we use, and she logged in, and I get the MFA on my phone as one of the forms, and I was like, yep, are you logging in right now? She said, yes. I said, okay, I'll approve you. So I knew right then that she was actually doing it. but she wouldn't have been able to get in had I not given that approval. So it was nice. Like, and that's the situation where, you know, she could have just popped into Teams and said, hey, I'm going to try to log in, just letting you know so you can approve the MFA. And that would have been no big deal. Or you can set up another form if it's a, you know, a hassle to do that. But it was nice. And there have been times where I have, you know, not allowed it and said, nope, I'm not letting that person in. And the one time it was someone from work, they're like, hey, I couldn't get into this. And I'm like, oh, that was me. I turned it off because I didn't know someone was trying to get in. But it's just that extra layer of protection to make sure your data stays safe.
Yep, absolutely. Any other questions, comments, concerns?
Doesn't look like it. I think we've got everything. So I greatly appreciate it. We hope you all enjoyed your about 15 minutes here of education on your lunchtime. And I'll let Katie talk about the next one.
I was just going to say, so coming up next on November 3rd at 12:15, we are going to talk about SharePoint, OneDrive, and Teams and how this whole combination works together. So I know coming into the end of the year, a lot of people are, you know, maybe looking at replacing a server or something like that. So if you have any projects like that, or if you're just trying to figure out kind of a nice way to get everybody on the same page and how you guys can save your data and keep it secure, all those wonderful things, please feel free to join us. So we would love to have you. Feel free to bring your questions, and we look forward to seeing you then.
Yeah, and just a reminder that this is user experience based. So we're trying to make sure that you understand how to use the tools you have, not just know that they're there and here's the basic overview of the tool and this what it can do. We want you to know what you can do with it. So if you have questions, make sure you can send them in early or ask them on the event as well.
Absolutely. All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.
See ya.
Thank you for viewing this episode in our series. To learn more about our next presentation, visit www.tomtechtoday.com/training webinar. We look forward to seeing you there.